this is a meta sports journalism topic, and I think it's really interesting because if Jimmy Garoppolo is on the team in training camp and there's a quarterback competition, to me, I don't think it will be covered unbiasedly, probably from either side. But what I think is like, I feel like, and I'd love to hear what you think, but I feel like we saw it to a degree last year. Since Jimmy has all these wins under his belt, it's almost like it doesn't matter what he does in practice. He threw 11 picks last year, and every time it was like, well, he bounced back, he had a good day, it's okay, he's working on things. He's sort of established in it. You already know what he can do, even though it's not quite good enough. You know what he can do, and he wins a lot of games. With Trey, he's a total unknown. So it's like everything about him that he does is like, well, he had a good day, but the move the ball period wasn't good, or he throws it too hard, or his ball wobbles. It's like, wow, man, like we're really talking about the nature of the spiral. I've never, ever gone that deep with Jimmy Garoppolo, but I feel like a lot of people, one, we know what Jimmy is. We don't know what Trey is. The other thing is, I think a lot of people, maybe fans, not journalists, that love Jimmy are like, man, Jimmy's gotten way too much flack. Now it's time for Trey Lance to see how it feels. I think there's that part too, but that's like a more of a fan thing. What do you think of the whole conversation around these quarterbacks?
Yeah, well, I think the last part you just said is really I think that's where you're going to get a lot of the Jimmy. I don't even think it matters if Garoppolo's on the team. You're going to still get that from those fans. You know, the fans that you know who the Super 49er fans are on Twitter, right? Or the Super Jimmy Garoppolo fans are on Twitter. Yes. They're still going to be saying Jimmy would have done it better whether Garoppolo's on the team or not. That's still going to be a piece of discussion, just like it was with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick in 2013, right? The 49ers were winning a bunch of games, though, so they had to be kind of quiet. They couldn't really, there wasn't a whole lot there to talk about because the 49ers kept winning. Yeah. But that I think from that standpoint, and then in terms of the way that he's covered.
By 2014, the Alex Smith people were like, see, told you.
Yeah. And then as far as the way that it's covered by the media, I think it's, you know, I think if you're doing it right, you're able to explain the good and bad for both guys without having to create a narrative around one guy or the other.
Correct.
And that was kind of my point when I was reaching out, you know, on the Twitter stuff the other day, last week it wasn't really, it was more about, hey, I'll be honest, when I saw it, I took it as, well, I'm getting pigeonholed here because if I go and I talk about Trey Lance being not good in practice, then I'm going to become the hater. Right. And I want to be, I'm not a Trey Lance hater. I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo.
You do a really good job of being true to what you see. You do a really good job of being true to what you see. And I think what we're going to see is some days Trey Lance is better. Some days Jimmy is better in practice. And we're going to have to relay that accurately.
Yeah. And I think that you can do that with Trey Lance, and you can say, and that's why, you know, for me, when you go back and like you look at the Houston game, for example, during the regular season, that second start, I think it's important to show the mistakes in the first half and not be afraid of saying this is a mistake, even though it's a completion, because that makes the second half look so much better impressive. Because you can see the growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't just like he was making crazy plays off schedule in the second half. Like he was correcting plays he messed up in the first half. Right.
Exactly. The slant, you know, the second time he has it, he drills it in. The second time he has Ayuk wide open in the hole, he sticks it on him. You know, the throw to George Kittle down the middle, just a beauty. And then the deep balls too. So, I mean, it's really hard when you're writing about football to be able to try to put all this into an article or into something like a recap, because there's just so much information and you start to, it's just hard to kind of weave it all through. But it's important, I think, to talk about the good and the bad if we can, especially during training camp.
Agree. This year, if they do a quarterback competition, which again I think would be a mistake, but if they do it, hopefully it'll be like a level playing field where they're really splitting reps with the first team and going against it. Because last year it was never level. Like Trey would have a good day, but it'd be mostly with the backup. So if your lens was Trey's not ready, then you could be like, well, it doesn't really count because it's going. I mean, who do you go against? And then when Jimmy would throw a pick, you could say like, well, it's Fred Warner. You know, Fred Warner is a great player. I mean, come on, he's going against an All-Pro. So there's a lot of that. You know, nothing Trey did was really mattered because it was with backups, and every mistake was sort of hyper focused on because he's with backups. And this year, I'd like to think if the Niners can structure it in a fair way, that all of us could do our best to really cover it in a fair way, because a lot's at stake for this team and these young men. And I think we're part of the whole thing. I don't know. I just think it's important. So I'm trying to get
Yeah.
my mind right. I've never covered a real quarterback competition. It's gonna be
No,
interesting.
I see I see what you're saying there, and it makes sense because you want to have these guys really be able, if they're competing, you want them to be able to do, and in a way, doing that competition in that manner hurts the team,
Yes.
right? Because they're not getting, the first team guys aren't getting the flow of the quarterback, for
Right.
example. So it could kind of hurt the team in that
Right.
way. So I see that. And the other piece too for me is that if I think Trey Lance, I think pretty much everybody understands Trey Lance is going to be the guy, and so I think from our standpoint, I think you're going to see the writing and the way folks cover it be a little bit more pro Trey Lance if he's
Right.
doing well than we saw last year because Garoppolo was kind of still expected to be the guy based on what the team was saying.
You know what's the ultimate irony here too is, like, I think again what I think a lot of the Jimmy Garoppolo support's going to leave when he's gone, especially in the media. Take someone like the
Yes.
spreadsheet. I think he's a little confused as to who he's supposed to back. But as soon as Jimmy's gone, you're going to see the spreadsheet become the number one Trey Lance fan of all time. And what's going to be funny is I'm a natural skeptic. So once there's only one quarterback, I'm going to slowly start to look at Trey Lance in a much more skeptical light. And pretty much me and the spreadsheet are going to change very much on this issue. And that's definitely going to happen. You know that's going to happen. But as long as there's two quarterbacks on the team, it makes it really, really weird. It just does. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I agree with you. And that's why for myself, I've tried to always be that way with him. That's why I think a lot of people felt like I was a Trey Lance hater last year when I kept thinking the guy was really good. It just,
yeah,
I just didn't feel like he was, I felt like the Frontiers process with him was good. I think it's going to make him better in 2022 than if he had played last year, as crazy as that might sound. We saw, and the reason we saw little bits and pieces
yeah.
of it last year at the end of the year. So.
Well, we'll see. I mean, part of me feels like, man, he didn't play last year. The offensive line is downgraded. He's going to get hurt. The other part of me is feeling like, stop worrying. He's really, really athletic. Even when he misses reads, he extends plays and good things happen. He's really explosive. He has explosive playmakers. He has Kyle Shanahan. The offense is going to take off. I mean,
Yeah.
the bar is really low. So part of me feels like he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, I think if you were a Trey Lance believer last year, don't stop being a Trey Lance believer now. Just kind of stick with it because if he is having issues, some of it's going to be him. But you can talk about it based off of,
Yeah.
like you said, if Trey Lance is playing good, but they're losing games because the defense, well, it's not Trey Lance's fault, and that's the
Yes.
story that becomes a story.
Yes.
If Trey Lance is playing well, but he's getting pressured too much, that's the story. So there's lots of ways that we can discuss it. It'll be a lot of fun to go through it. In a lot of ways, if Trey Lance is struggling, the stories become a lot more interesting, I think, to readers.
Absolutely. I mean, if he's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, that's a story. If he's not, great, but he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, that needs to be in the context there. And if he improves, if he doesn't, I mean, that's all kind of stuff. But I think another thing, like with this competition, if they're having a competition, does Trey Lance have to like definitively beat him? Or if it's close enough, do you go with the young guy because he's going to improve?
I think it's different this year. I think last year he had to definitively beat him because he was the new guy. Nobody really knew who he was, and he had to come out and he really had to blow it away. And that's why he didn't become the starting quarterback last year, because although he had some splash plays, he wasn't doing it enough. Whereas now, this year, I think you look at him, as long as if they're at the same level this year, it's Trey Lance's team and Jimmy Garoppolo is somewhere else. I don't think we're even going to get there. Really, realistically, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be gone before training camp because they're going to need that money elsewhere.
Good. And if they're unlike last year, there's not a bunch of vets on 1-year deals saying we need to start the veteran quarterback. I mean, the signings they made were guys who were younger than Debo, dudes who were 25. So they're starting a bunch of guys who are unproven. So how can anyone in this locker room say, well, Trey's not ready? Aaron Banks isn't ready. Talanoa Hufanga isn't ready. Like, this year as a whole, like, let's see what happens kind of year. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
It could definitely go that way. It could. I could. I don't feel like it is, or at least I don't think it's going to go that way. But I can understand if it does, because you do have some question marks out there.
Yeah. Murphy says Jimmy and Trey is like Montana and young Jed. Thank you, Jed.
Well, I think that quote gets taken out of context a little bit, because I don't think he was trying to say that they're at the same level in terms of their ability. I think he was saying more about the fact that you have two good quarterbacks who can coexist and not beat each other up in the locker room.
Yeah, that's what he was trying to say. But anytime
it didn't come out that way.
That didn't come out that way. Tua and Waddle for Trey Lance. No.
Why would you do that? That's awful.
Ew. Murphy says, saw some footage of Trey working out the other day. One is passes really close to a spiral. Can't believe we didn't trade for him. One of his passes really close to us. That's funny. That is funny.
That's funny. I saw a thing too where Trey Lance was in Santa Clara the other day, or San Jose. He was the guys that he works out with, QB Takeover, were in San Jose up at Valley Christian last week, and he was out there working with some kids. So that was pretty cool to see.
Oh, too. Nice. When I was an intern at KTVU with Marky Banyas, who just retired, I would do high school football on Fridays. And one game we did at Valley Christian, they were really good. Probably a good team.
Yeah. Valley Christian, they're part of the league that just dominates the Santa Clara County area.
Oh, nice. Do they go up against De La Salle every year? Is that like the big clash of the Titans?
They're one of the teams that can go in and play again and beat them, because they I don't know if you follow college high school football around here. St. Francis High School from Mountain View beat De La Salle last year, and
it's always the Catholic schools.
Well, because Valley Christian and St. Francis are in the same league. Yeah, Sarah, which is I think
another Catholic school. What is that?
I think that's Larry Kruger. I think Larry Kruger is I don't know if he was a Sarah guy
or
if
he's
SI.
He's SI.
He's SI. So SI is in that league as well.
Yeah. Fishbowl down.
You're over on the other side of the bay.
All right. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching, everyone. I think I'm going on with Rob in an hour. You went on with Rob yesterday, right? Is he off IR?
I went on with him on Wednesday, and he's
off IR?
Last night he did a show where he took his bandage off. He said he was going to go bandage free. So no, he's back. He's ready to go.
At the buzzer, Murphy says, assuming Debo is back, should this still be a playoff roster in the NFC West? No. How much blame does Trey deserve if he falls short? That's the thing. I'm telling you, this freaking schedule is brutal.
The schedule's brutal. If Debo is back and they are a playoff roster, if the quarterback stays healthy, I think they can be in the fight. If they fall short, it's going to be because of areas outside of that. I mean, they're playing against some really good quarterbacks, and that's one of the things. If you go back and look at the 49ers over the last 3 years, look at the level of quarterbacks they're playing against, it kind of gives you an idea what their record's going to be.
As long as Trey Lance and Debo Samuel play like 15 games each, the Niners should be at least a wild card team. But Debo does have, Debo just pulls him like he's the opposite of Kittle. Kittle has bird legs that are kind of breaking down. Debo has a thick lower body that sometimes might be a little imbalanced. I mean, his quads are huge. Anyway, if he can stay healthy like last year, if Trey Lance doesn't get beaten to oblivion behind a questionable pass protecting offensive line, they should be fine. They should be pretty good. Yeah, they should be.
I would say they're at 10. If they can win 10 games, they're in the hunt, right? And 9 games, that gets you into the playoffs in the NFC.
I mean, they were a 10-win team last year. They've lost a few things, but theoretically, they should be better at quarterback. They should be better at cornerback. They have Ray McLeod. Okay, I'm done.